Good afternoon, folks. This is Bob from BBD on this afternoon, Thursday afternoon, the 10th. Here, right at the top, I want to, while my posts have been fairly aggressive as far as China is concerned, I really want to point out that war is the last thing any one of us wants, especially most of us who actually are children of the armed forces. I'm one of those too. We faced the anxiety when our fathers went to war in either 62 or 65 or 71. I know what all of us went through, and I all know what everybody here who are the current children feel when their fathers go out to the front. It's not an easy feeling, absolutely not, and I can tell you that. A lot of my friends have lost their fathers in 62 and 65. So I'm not talking off my head, I am talking through real experience. However, having said that, the army is there to fight or to prevent a fight. Either way, you have to be ready for war, right? We accept that there is, and I'm sure everybody in the current armed forces, the retired armed forces also accept the fact that for the honor of the country and for our territory, they will lay down their lives. They will lay down their lives. But, the sacrifices have to amount to something. Let me just tell you a story of 1965 of a brave Lieutenant Colonel. This is 6th of September. It's called the Raja Day, where it was celebrated on the 6th of September, including by Captain Amrinder Singh, who was also a part of this regiment, where the 2nd Sikh, led by Colonel Khanna, captured the Haji Pir, with sacrificing his life and getting a Mahavir Chakra. This is accepted by most of the children. But can you imagine what they felt like, where in 65, the then Prime Minister Shastri traded Haji Pir Pass, which is a critical territory because most of the infiltration happens. And this is a cross that the Congress has to bear, and we still don't know why that happened. But guess where it happened? In Tashkent. Guess where Tashkent was? In the ex-USSR. Guess how he died? We don't know. Probably by poisoning. Is there some connection to what's been happening globally now? The opposition guy got poisoned currently, who's just come out of coma in Germany. Earlier, there were a couple of the other Russians who were poisoned in the United Kingdom. So that Russia has a history for it, right? Why I say this is that you have all these reports, right? That is saying China's Yi confirms Russia visit to meet Jaishankar. You have another report by Dipanjan Roy Chaudhary which says RIC foreign ministers meet another opportunity to break the Ladakh ice. And then you have this Russia lays groundwork for India-China meet. We have to be very wary of that. Remembering 1965, I am extremely nervous. Why am I nervous? Because Russia for sure is not an honest or an unbiased broker. It's working at India's cross purposes with India's national interests in a number of areas, especially critically Afghanistan. India is collateral damage for its pet peeve against the United States, and they're not going to care two hoots about what happens to India. So when our EAM goes into this conversation with Wang Yi, who's another goon, right, just like Sergei Lavrov, but you have to be very careful that we don't trade off those heights that we currently have. Otherwise it will be injustice to the 20 soldiers who lost their lives, the soldiers from the Bihar regiment, who lost their lives fighting for it. It will be a complete travesty of justice, and their sacrifice would have been wasted, just like the sacrifice of those brave soldiers of the Punjab regiment in the 65 war. To know it. But lucky, what we have here is, it seems that on 6th September there's a report by Saurav Jha which has said that local commanders know what to do, let them. That's important because this can be handled at the local level, just like what happened in Galwan. It was not something that came from the Ministry of External Affairs. It was a local affair. Then you have Manu Pabi writing, Indian Chinese troops dig in at Chushul fragment. The Chushul Bowl is extremely critical and important. Proximity of troops most dangerous, so be it. That's the only way these guys understand that we are not backing down. Then you have China claims Indian soldiers fired warning shots at LAC. I don't know whether Indian soldiers fired or the Chinese soldiers fired, but this is the first time in 45 years and actually good for it. I am not somebody who's saying that that's bad or that's actually a good indicator that India is not backing down. But while this is happening and we think that everything is hunky-dory, now China claims Arunachal hints it didn't abduct own citizens. Now guys, get into play. It's just not the eastern sector. They're going to have everything open. So if you think this is a hunky-dory affair, it's not. Then there is a Deccan Chronicle writes, India on alert along LOC as China uses proxy Pakistan. Here we have to be very careful. There is every chance that China may divert the attention by Pakistan doing its dirty work and getting this into being an India-Pak thing. That should be avoided at all costs. If that happens, India must hammer China instead of getting back at Pakistan. That is my advice. It's top out of the box, but that's what we should be doing. Then we have another one which says India-China talks to ease border tensions and inconclusively again, because finally it's the armed forces they're talking. It's Rajnath Singh, the defense minister, and he doesn't want to back down, and that's the right situation, the right approach currently. Then Pawan Bali writes in another one, can't lose an inch of territory, says China after meet. So China is saying that we can't lose an inch of territory, want complete disengagement at LAC, India to China in Russia. Now that is important messaging from the defense minister, and let's hope, having been given the advantage, the external affairs minister doesn't lose it for us. Then you have India draws the red line, nudges China to behave. They're never going to behave. I mean, for them, this is actually better behavior. I mean, this is good behavior, right? The bad behavior is really, really bad. But what's really good, which the Deccan Chronicle wrote, and the way it's put it, India lifts veil on SFF, honors fallen soldier. That has sent a huge message. And why is that important? Because almost every international publication, from the New York Times to the Wall Street Journal, is actually carrying the picture of that coffin draped in an Indian and a Tibetan flag. And just when the United States and the rest of the world are getting aggressively against human rights issues with China, this will play a huge positive impact on what India is doing. You have another report says, again, like I said, this is the picture of the picture that is now being played in all Los Angeles Times, right down to New York Times, right? With this, as he rightly says, India signals it has other options for building pressure on Beijing. The key one was always Tibet. Now it needs to upgrade Dalai Lama to the status that he deserves, and that will be the true strength of character. Again, Rajnath in another Express India says, can't lose an inch of territory. China China obviously, I mean, China is jumping all over the place, man. He says, it's this kind of, China seeks to blame India for ongoing situation at LAC, saying New Delhi was entirely responsible for tensions and signal that talks haven't made headway. This is exactly the playbook of 1962. And unfortunately, to the rest of the world believed it. This time, we have the wind behind our sail, and we should use it to the maximum benefit. 1971 took a humongous effort by Indira Gandhi diplomatically to try and convince the world that what was happening in Bangladesh was wrong. And despite the cold shoulders she got in the United Kingdom and in the United States, she went ahead and did what was right. This time, our diplomats don't even need to exert that effort at all. We already have it. So, like almost everybody is saying that, right? Financial Times saying Himalayan border tension is accident waiting to happen. But last week, India grabbed the initiative, sending thousands of troops to take possession of heights in the Chushul sector of the Kailash range that gave them a strategic vantage point over Chinese border positions. This is important. The world is acknowledging that. Then you have Sachin Prashar says, LAC on razor edge. India blames China. No firing from our side. Rein in your troops, Delhi to Beijing. Beijing is saying the same thing. But be careful. As Harinder Bajwa writes, PLA territorial violation since July not limited to Eastern Ladakh, India. And so has Claude RP said it, that a central portion is actually going to be, may become the next theatre. This is Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. As this report suggests by Vikram Sharma, Nepal copters active in China support near Uttarakhand border. Says it all. We have to be careful. This is, the central area is not as settled as one thinks. So you have to be careful and be ready for some mischief in that area. But this is good because now we know that now. Right down to the bottom line, the commanders at the ground level have been told to take necessary action, and it says India will retaliate in case China breaches red lines. Top official. Forward positions reinforced, troops fully prepared. India bulks up amid provocation by PLA. Here a lot of people talk about the Air Force, like they got 150 aircraft. Let me just tell you, my calculation is that we need about 50 to 60 aircraft to counter those 150 in terms of payload. In terms of qualitatively, I think it's a 1:2 ratio. So let's not get overawed with these 150 being placed in the Tibet Valley. They need it. They have no choice, but they can't put in any more because the rest have to worry about the Taiwan Straits, right? Then you have 50,000 PLA men and surface-to-air missiles near LAC. We have ours, they have theirs. That's good. But like I said, after the shots were fired, almost everybody now is noting. Los Angeles Times says experts see a China-India war risk. One wrong move in Himalayan dispute could set off a wider conflict they warn. Washington Post says warning shots are fired on India-China border. For first time in decades, both nations say firearms were used at disputed frontier where they have long been restricted. Then you have the Wall Street Journal saying India and China accuse each other of firing shots. Relations continue to deteriorate between two nuclear powers. Almost every foreign publication now is finally noting that there is a problem. About time too, right? We have New York Times says India-China level charges of gunfire along border. And as it says, India troops leave limited options. Now, having captured those high heights, it says very clearly, Indian troops leave limited options for PLA looking for Galwan-type clashes. That is really good. And while this is happening in diplomacy, you have India, Australia, France discuss ties. India, Australia, and Vietnam has also discussed ties. But here what I want to point out, why have we got to this stage? Why are we using words like unprecedented, unexpected? It's because of this. Is what Sudarshan writes. Wuhan and the Garden of False Expectations. The song the Chinese musicians are playing with the elegance plucking pear-shaped lutes, zithers blowing melodiously on the Chinese flutes is a carefully chosen Kishore Kumar Asha Bhosle duet which goes Mil jaye is tarah do lehrein jis tarah phir na ho na juda hum ye wada raha. Unbelievable. This is what China does to you, okay? And we fall for it. And then in Mamalipuram, in another informal summit setting, which is to say, without the rigidity of official position, she was as pleased as a fat Chinese cat that just tasted its favorite cream, that he had heart-to-heart discussions with Modi ji on bilateral matters. This heart-to-heart moment was branded by spin meisters as the Chennai Connect. That's where we went wrong, folks. That is what is important. But what is happening in the rest of the world? You said US border agents target Chinese students. Now Chinese students exiting the US are having a problem. You have chip maker SMIC, as I told you, hit by blacklist fears, and that lost almost 22.9% in Hong Kong. That is the way to go. The sad news in India, obviously, is which doesn't get played out. Lockdown and despair saw death in rural India. This is a report in New York Times. And in the Khaleej Time, on the other hand, which says that India needs to really occupies a lot of space in Dubai. Kohli enjoys the calm. Then they're writing about the DRDO scientists secure place of nations in elite hypersonic missile club. All is not well. Let's be prepared. Jai Hind.